Okay.
Okay,
That's
so
super useful. I'm writing
outside of the
that down,
fact
Chad.
Do it.
outside of the fact that the games that we're playing are subject to DMCA, another thing that we've seen is music.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
while we haven't had a widespread crackdown on music yet, there was a couple months ago a group of notable streamers got DMCA'd for a certain song by a certain artist. Twitch instilled, I believe now, probably like 2 years ago, a couple years ago, where they would mute VODs or
Hmm.
portions of your VOD if it played copyright music.
I think that was
And
3 years,
that's
3 or 4 years ago, even at this point.
Yeah.
yeah.
Quite a while.
So where are we at with music? Like, what's the deal?
So what happened, and somebody's asking if counter DMCA will be covered today, and the answer is yes. When it comes to music, music is so complicated. Music, I will fully admit, is one of the most complicated parts of copyright law.
And this is something you actively work with.
It's something I actively work with, and it is extremely difficult to really encompass. And I'll fully admit it's an unproven area of law. However, I work on the team at Pretzel Rocks. Pretzel is a music streaming service. Full disclosure, I am a part of that team. It's a great service.
I use it, and I think Lowco uses it as well.
Yep.
Heck yes, thank you guys. You guys are amazing. But being part of that team has really thrust me into music law. And the reason music law is so much more difficult is because you have publishers and you have songwriters. So basically you have songwriter, you have the recording and the written part. To break it down to its most basic, you have the person who writes the song, the composition, and you actually have the recording itself, which is the audio part. So if Lowco writes the song and reverse that. If Hunter writes the song and Lowco records it, I don't know how you say Hunter, then you each,
worse than me.
Yeah, and I want to use the song in stream, I have to come to both of you to get the rights separately.
That already sounds complicated.
Oh yeah. And what I need is not just a performance license. So for instance, I can't just go to the performance rights organizations, PROs, like ASCAP and BMI, and say, hey, I need a performance license. What I need also is the right to sync the music in timed relation with the video, a sync license. And those are the most valuable music right that musicians have. Because, for instance, if Time Warner comes to you and says, I want to use your song in a movie, you're going to charge them out the butt for it. See, I just censored myself. Family friendly stream. It's extremely complicated to get all those rights. Very rarely do you ever actually end up with someone who has both the composition and the recording right. And if you can get a sync license from them very easily. It's just a matter of naming the price. So the problem that you run into when you're playing music on stream is that, for instance, if you want to play, what's your most favorite song right now?
Katy Perry.
Cool, Katy Perry. I use Katy Perry a lot in these things. So if you want to play Katy Perry doesn't own all the rights to her songs. So you can get written permission. You can tweet at Katy Perry and say, Katy Perry, I'd like to use your songs in my stream. And she'd say, go for it, Lowco. And you wouldn't be able to do it because someone else could DMCA you. It's crazy. So what?
And that's just like all work for one song. Like,
yeah.
That sounds like some Byzantine labyrinths of bad. Is there a minotaur in the middle of this law?
Oh man, there is, and it's me. But what you end up getting to is solutions because obviously YouTube knows, Twitch knows that without music, then their content is less rich.
Mm-hmm.
Music makes content richer. You guys, when you're playing, you want to hear stuff. Like you guys are both very entertaining individuals, but if like you end up going off to the restroom or something, your chair's there, it's very quiet without music. Same with YouTube, it builds drama and adds to everything. They know it's important. So YouTube has developed content ID, and Twitch has developed VOD muting. So when your VOD is created, your clips are made, then that goes off, that gets stored. And Twitch goes through it and recognizes the songs through a really nifty algorithm that a lot of engineers worked on to say, all right, this 5-minute section contains copyrighted music that the streamer does not have the right to use. It's muted. That'll typically help you with DMCA because it's hard for people to find and point to something that is muted and say this contains infringing music. Well, where's your proof?
Interesting.
There's a really minor issue there, which seems to be that even if you do get the rights, there are a lot of situations where they're still muting the VOD and they don't unmute it. It seems really minor and something that we're working on. You know, I'm sure it'll get resolved at some point soon.
Huh. I'd rephrase that question, would you? I lost you about halfway through there.
No question. It was just a comment from having a few friends of mine who had who apparently had the clear rights to the music, and it got muted, and they appealed the mute itself, and they simply weren't unmuting the thing, even though it should have been fine because it's still fresh, still in fresh territory. It doesn't see that's not that big of a deal though.
Well, now your next question will be, and I'm supplying it to you right now, is
thank you.
If the VODs are muted, how did all those folks who got DMCA takedowns a few weeks ago, or I think it's 2 months ago now, those major streamers, how did they get DMCA notices? And the way it happened was because that song had not been officially released yet. It had been passed through peer-to-peer sharing. And like, for instance, Streamlabs has a way for you to do that, file sharing. And so it had been passed through and they had played it and said, oh, this is cool. It's not released yet. That's nifty. And the VOD, it wasn't recognized in the VOD because it wasn't entered into this recognition system yet. And so it was left live. And so the song, which had not been released, was popping up all over the place. And so obviously the owner of the song, the publisher, went and said DMCA, 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 because it was out there, it was live, it hadn't been released, they didn't want anybody to hear it yet.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I remember like the artist tweeted like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, guys." I remember that.
Yeah, the artist was not concerned with having it taken down.
He didn't have, based on Noah's explanation, the full power to say whether or not that they could.
Right. Oh yeah, the artist had no say in it whatsoever. And it's funny. Right after that, everybody, like for instance, Ninja came out and said, "Oh, I better turn off this because I want to use it on YouTube later. I don't want to get a DMCA." Literally have that clip. I saved it for posterity. It's the best thing in the world. And the thing is, he was like, I wish, Drake would just say, I can use God's plan. Well, if you look it up, God's plan actually is 18 different rights holders. Yeah. That's nuts.
Huge.
Get wrecked, Ninja.
Wow.
Yeah, so it has 18 different rights holders. So even if Drake said, yeah, you're good to go, whitelist me, bro, he would have 17 other people that he has to get the rights from.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's so complex.
So now, you mentioned like, VODs getting muted and stuff like that. Does that make DMCA takedowns impossible? No. Why don't we see DMCAs more often? Like, is this like the music industry just hasn't really caught on, or do they see that it's beneficial to actually as promotion the same way games do? Little column
A, little column B. So one, yes, they do see it as beneficial. The majors, so there's 3 major music companies, they recognize, oh, hey, this song blowing up on Twitch, that's awesome. They will still issue a DMCA in a heartbeat, though. The second thing is it's difficult for a live stream. Nobody's really issued a DMCA to a live stream.
I mean, you have to watch it.
Right. You have to be watching it live.
The song would still have to be playing.
You're really fast.
Like, you have to play the same like songs like that they would all own, right? Like,
yeah. And so you have to get to it before the muting process came through. So for instance, if I'm live, I start at 9 a.m. I play a song at 9:30. somebody would need to hear it at 9:30 or hear it before I finish streaming, and issue a DMCA to Twitch. Twitch would have to go back in, rewind, and hear it in order to get me live. But they can do it. It's just nobody's done it yet. When it happens, I have a feeling that the world's going to come crashing down on everybody, and everybody's going to start paying attention to this stuff. But for now, it hasn't happened yet. Now, there are discussions in the works, and some of this is confidential, that I can't talk about, so I won't go into it. There are discussions between the majors and Twitch right now, but they're in kind of a standstill. I saw a question earlier, why doesn't Amazon just roll out Amazon Prime Music that includes a streaming service? And that would be a great idea if somebody, I forget exactly who said that, but if good for you for thinking of that. The problem is,
I mean, I'm surprised that they aren't working on that. If they're not,
even if they are, if you look at it this way, Universal owns a catalog of 5 million tracks. They only have rights on both sides of the ball to the recording and the composition to maybe 500,000 of them. And it's more likely they only have it to 50,000.
That's a tiny fraction.
So if Universal doesn't even have those rights, how can they give it to Amazon Prime Music? Plus, Amazon Prime Music needs to go out and get the rights that they don't currently have, those performance rights. And so that means renegotiating contracts. And like I said, those are the most valuable sync rights are the most valuable rights that those musicians have. So they're not just going to get rid of them willy-nilly. Now, I know the Bezos has all the money in the world, but he doesn't have that much right now.
So how do radios work? Why can't we? How can we be like a radio station?
Radios. So the reason the music is in its current form, music law is in its current form, is because the radio and television lobby have kept digital streaming from being brought into the modern century. So it's an entirely different set of rules. Radio doesn't have to sync up with video. But if you have, like, for instance, MTV playing stuff, they get those rights. They negotiate those rights individually so that they can promote that stuff. But radio streaming, like over the airwaves, is even different from Pandora and Spotify. And actually, the rights that Pandora and Spotify need are different. And you think of those as interchangeable. So one of them is interactive and one of them is non-interactive. Spotify, you can pick which song you want. Pandora goes on algorithms. So Pandora is actually treated separately from Spotify. So music law is all janked up. But there's their Music Modernization Act is in Congress right now to fix some of that. But what it doesn't do is fix anything for us in this industry.